So after the third ODI between England and Ireland, it's time to ask George. Jack asks, last time Bristol hosted an England game?
No, I think they're allocated one even later in the summer next year, 29th of September against Australia. And let's hope that goes brilliantly. But there are lessons to learn, I think. I think this is the fourth men's ODI in succession that's been abandoned here. Probably, I think we can't keep saying that's really bad luck, can you? Can you? Look, I saw this one with my own eyes, and it rained hard. It did rain hard. It had rained overnight. They were slow. They were slow getting the covers on. They just were. And I've never seen slower. Not in international cricket. Can't honestly think I have in domestic. I would say it took every bit of 15 minutes to get the sheets on over the bowlers' run-ups at the Ashley Down road end. You know, it's really hard work, and maybe one of the takeaways is how high our expectations are of ground staffs generally and what a great job they do, which they undoubtedly do, and it's very physical work. And it was a tough day, you know. It was very heavy rain, and it was windy, so it was really difficult. So I'd suggest they weren't resourced well enough, both with facilities and person power, to pull the covers on quickly enough. I just, you know, keep going back to the same thing. You're asking spectators to spend a lot of money. They didn't get any money back. Fourth time in a row. It's not really good enough, is it?
So what do we need to look at? We want international cricket to be the full breadth of the country, across the full breadth of the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely defend Bristol's right, Gloucestershire's right to host international cricket. But it isn't just a license to print money, it's a responsibility. And particularly at this time of year, you're going to have to be really, really careful with the weather. I'll say again, it did rain hard. There are mitigating circumstances, but you could see it coming. Maybe the umpires could have given them a wee bit more time, but they did seem to be quite slow to get it all together, to pull the covers on, to be able to control them, to tie them up. You know, at one stage, a tractor drove down the length of the pitch. It did. I mean, on the pitch, outside off stump, sure, but on the pitch. I haven't seen things like that happen before in international cricket, not anywhere in the world. And we all know the cost of labour is terribly expensive in the UK, but if you're going to get people here, if you're going to ask people to spend a lot of money, you've got to do a better job than that. Sorry, I fear it would be really easy for me to soft soap this and say, you know, it's really tough. And I didn't make any criticism at all of the umpires or ground staff at Leeds the other day. Sometimes, you know, bad weather happens. I just want to be honest, really. I think spectators deserve a bit better than this. It took a long time to get the covers on. I mean, it was literally raining on the pitch, and the push-on covers had gaps between them. And then the real issue seemed to be that water came in from the side because they weren't pinned together. You know, the roll-ons weren't pinned to the sheeting. You know, it's a tough job, and we all make mistakes. But, you know, the big thing is looking forward to this happening next year, a big game against Australia on September the 29th. Let's make sure there's half a dozen more on the ground staff. And let's see if there are any other lessons that could be learned. It looked like they were finding the sheets really too heavy, no doubt partly because of the water, but maybe there were things that could be done about that. I mean, you do see soppers act on covers before they're folded away. I mean, that does happen. I don't know. You know, one way or another, I'm sure there are some lessons to learn, and I look forward to coming back here next year and seeing a great international. 4 in a row. Partly bad luck. Not entirely, I don't think.
Let's look at the cricket that we did see. And Neil Varani asks, have Duckett, Salt and Jack potentially put themselves on the plane, well, not on the plane as such, as multi-position second discipline batting reserves? And if so, was Roy opting out potentially a mistake?
Well, when you don't play, it gives other people opportunities. I wouldn't criticise Roy for that. I think, geez, person's allowed to be disappointed. You know, he was told he was going to India, got injured, allowed a chance. You know, brutal, the decision to drop him. Not necessarily wrong, but really, really difficult for him. So he's smarting, he's hurting. I believe he's said he's happy to go as a reserve. but the reserves aren't travelling, and they don't have to name them. And, so England will have a pool of players who will be ready if required. And yes, to answer the question, well, Ben Duckett and Will Jacks in particular, I think, have given themselves a great chance. That's not to say Phil Thorpe hasn't as well, but, obviously Jacks can bowl. So if something happened to, I don't know, Adil Rashid's obviously had some injuries, or Moeen, or even Livingston, he would be an option. And Duckett can bat, top of the order and the middle order, and is playing so well, hits the ball in such unusual positions. You would think, particularly if the pitches are going to be quite low, that he would be very, very useful. So, done themselves no harm at all, and the depth in England's batting resources is really, really impressive. I thought Ben Duckett was outrageously good today. They're very, very tough to bowl to. I had some sympathy for the Ireland bowlers. I mean, some of them lack the weapons on a flat wicket. By the way, it was a belter of a wicket. I mean, the ground staff deserve credit for that. Absolute humdinger of a batting wicket. Duckett would be so tough to bowl to any time, but on these sorts of wickets, the bowlers have to be so accurate. And apart from Young, they weren't quite able to do it. And they got, they took a bit of a pasting. I mean, genuinely 500 might have been on the cards here had the weather not intervened.
Sushan asks, looking forward beyond the World Cup, how many players will retire from ODIs after the tournament?
Oh, loads. I mean, and across the world, I'm sure they will. But in the England side, you don't have to be a genius to work out who, at least half a dozen, quite possibly more. Yeah, it'll be a proper change into the guard, which is why this series is even more relevant. It's not just about reserves for this World Cup. Yeah. This is the future, you would think. And, obviously, people are going to say, it's not a very strong Ireland side. I don't know how many times we've seen Ireland beat England. I mean, certainly the last 2 or 3 internationals before this series, including at the T20 World Cup. So I'd be wary of dismissing their ability to win this series. So that's really relevant. But everyone knows the players who are likely to go. And possibly, there'll be 1 or 2 who could change their minds, Stoke style, and come back for the next World Cup in 4 years. But I do expect that we'll see, wide-scale changes and maybe 8 or 9 people playing their last ODIs, the last 50 over cricket in this tournament.
Swapnil Singh asks, why has James Vince fallen off the radar after scoring that magnificent 100 in the run chase against Pakistan a couple of years ago?
Well, he did. He scored a very nice 100, but I'm not sure that he has particularly fallen off the radar, as you say. I mean, they're taking a look at new players. Some of these players are very inexperienced, and I guess they know what James Vince can do. And I wouldn't completely rule him out. I mean, I think that his teammate, Liam Dawson, is probably closer to a call-up. But, I wouldn't say James Vince is out of things. But, where would he come in, to be fair? I suppose he can go right at the top of the order. But, he's basically competing for that sort of Root, Butler, Stoke slot, isn't he? Pretty tough. So, I wouldn't absolutely rule out that he hasn't got some more games left in him. The other thing you'd say is he has had a fairly decent run in international cricket, and for reasons I don't completely understand, not scored the runs that you think he would have done. But I don't think they've completely cut him adrift or anything like that.
And finally, Occidental Tourist asks, should the Irish team be offered a place in the Blast 100 or One Day Cup to give them more competitive matches? I would perhaps raise the Friends Provident Trophy that we've previously seen.
Well, I don't think they want to do that. I mean, we've been there and they've done that, and they have their own domestic competitions. And they have a schedule of international matches. So, doors open, isn't it? If they want to have those conversations. From an egocentric, English-centric view, it would be much easier for English cricket to have 21 teams in the Championship, I think. It would just split, wouldn't it? Maybe into 3 divisions of 7. Maybe a little better, or you can go the other way, of course, cut teams. But it's up to them, really. They would have to want to do it, and they're going a different way. And obviously, they've had a bad few weeks. It's desperately disappointing not to get to the World Cup, for example. And their bowling attack has looked a bit short in this series. But it's really not very long since they've done terrifically well and punched above their weight. So I'd be wary of ripping up what they're doing so early in the process. And I think they're in quite good hands, actually, in lots of ways, certainly their chief executive and stuff. So if they want to have that conversation with the ECB, I'd be very, very open-minded about it. But I don't think that's what they want to do.